It's been an exciting week for Canadian soccer. The return of the Canadian Premier League on the domestic front, on the international front, plenty of exciting stars on the Canadian men's national team program taking the center stage on the world. None more so than Alfonso Davies. And if the world didn't know about that boy last week, they certainly know about him now. Joined now by John Herdman, men's national team head coach. John, talk a little bit about the performance of Alfonso Davies in that demolishing by Bayern Munich over Barcelona. What an incredible match that was. What was your take on the match?
Well, I think pride would be the first thing, just to see what Alfonso has done in a moment like that. How he's raised the profile of our game globally, and as many of the players have said that they're fighting for is respect for that Canadian passport in European markets. And what a job he did in a massive occasion. And I think that shows, Jason, it really does show how far Alfonso Davies has come. And like, if you just look at the performance, it was so disciplined. I mean, he's out there playing against Suarez, Messi. But I think the critical part of his performance was he never made a mistake. And that type of mistake that puts doubt into this young player's progression. And I think a lot of people were wondering, which and how he would turn up, or which Alfonso would turn up on that evening. And what I felt was it was a very disciplined performance. There wasn't, in defensive organization, there wasn't a moment where he's put himself in a mindset, or he's put himself in a position where people could question his ability. And because of that, the thing they remember now is that moment. And he had a few good moments. It wasn't a game where, there was constant moments of Alfonso, similar to the Chelsea game. There was a lot of top moments in that match. But this game, people remember the moment he had because he was so effective in ensuring there was nothing else to talk about from a negative perspective. And I think that's his growth. It's been massive, that discipline defensively.
I love the photo after he was fouled by Lionel Messi of Messi helping him up off the ground. You could argue the world's greatest player helping up one of the world's future stars, and that's a Canadian player. What does that say to you about the growth of the program and where it's going?
Well, I think you look at the growth of Alfonso, and he's come through the systems here in Canada. I think that is exciting. It gives our young players, clarity that young Canadians can develop in this country and then head into the top levels of European football. And I've said this all along, like, he's now raised a very clear bar, no different to other markers in sport achievement, where once it's set, someone's going to come along and go beyond it. And I think for any very young player who will purchase a Davies shirt, wear a red Davies shirt of Canada, and dream of being that player, that dream doesn't seem too far away when you've actually seen someone at the age of 19, 20 doing it. And I think that's the biggest shift he will have had on our future in this country. And I think the other side is just the importance of the national team, how important the red shirt's been on his journey, which you've seen him in the Gold Cup as a young man in 2017, capturing the tournament by storm, and how that elevated his profile. So I think it really is showing that Canada is becoming a serious football country, and people are now starting to recognize there is talent here. And that's what we've always needed. We've needed this sort of breakthrough to ensure more talent can flood into the highest levels of world football.
Another young Canadian star, Jonathan David, set a record transfer fee for a Canadian player this week when he moved from Ghent in Belgium to Lille in France. What does the future hold for Jonathan David? What does his future look like right now?
Well, you've had to work with him in a national team environment, coaching defenders against him. I mean,
It's a nightmare. I wouldn't want to play against him.
and I think we know why, because he's football IQ and his ability to manipulate space
Yeah.
is through the roof. I mean, that young man has just like ghost like qualities on how he's able to ghost into spaces, ghost into the box, and it's almost like his profile and personality off the pitch. He's a quiet man. He doesn't say
Mm.
much. But I think, what I keep seeing with Jonathan, and then I look at people like Christine Sinclair, Alfonso Davies. I've had, been fortunate to have worked with Atiba Hutchinson as well. There's a real humility to these players, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not by chance that they're achieving big things at young ages. And seeing the personality traits, you can sense that they've got longevity in their success, these young people. Like I say, when you've had time with people like Atiba and Christine, and you see them in their 30s, you can see what it is that has separated them from others that may have fallen on the journey and have had talent. And you can see those qualities in Jonathan and Alfonso. And it's something about our Canadian DNA that, we really have to celebrate, that we produce good people first, and that gives them the chance, if they've got talent, to go on and be great players. And I think that's what's exciting, looking at the rise of Jonathan. I think he's took a big step this year, and there's bigger steps to come, but the foundation for success is ingrained in him, which is his personality.
You mentioned Atiba Hutchinson there, and I had the very good fortune of playing alongside Atiba when he was just starting out. And I've seen him grow over the years, 15 straight years in UEFA club competitions. He just signed an extension to his contract to carry on playing. You've had the opportunity to work with Atiba. Talk a little bit about what a great Canadian he is, and a great Canadian success story, arguably Canada's best ever men's player.
Yeah, I mean, that Gold Cup experience with Atiba was a one for the memory books, for myself, and you just get a sense of he has a presence and an aura. And again, it's similar to a Sinclair, that they just have this presence about them. They're quiet, unassuming, but when they speak, people listen, and that's always the sign of real leadership. When people speak and they don't say much, you can see how intently people around are listening. And he's a leader of men. That's what I always sensed with him. It was like he had the ability to sense how to behave, how to respond in critical moments. And I always felt he was there to help everyone, including the coaching staff, with his experience. And you don't get that often with players. That there's often a very sort of myopic approach and self-centered, because the effects of pressure on people tend to make them myopic. But I felt Atiba was always willing to extend himself to everybody, and to take the whole burden of team performance forward. I guess the big moment for me was the defeat to Haiti, and he's poised in his interview post game to again just know what to say in that moment. Was a real lesson for a lot of players. Just the strength of his leadership, and I think that's certainly what I learned about Atiba. He's a leader of men.
Yeah, I think the word that best summarizes Atiba as a human being, but also as a footballer, is class. He has class in everything that he does. Just a remarkable player, remarkable person, and someone I think all Canadians should be proud of. Shifting gears a little bit to World Cup qualifying, there have been a lot of changes to the 2022 World Cup qualifying process over the last couple of years, from CONCACAF rankings to FIFA rankings to a playoff system to qualify for the final 8 that we have now. What are some of the realities of this revised qualifying campaign?
Look, I think there's a new reality for football internationally, and I think every country is in a new situation. It's unprecedented what I think national teams, even club teams, are now dealing with, to try and understand how they plan and prepare for competition. So it's something, Jason, that this new approach it's dawned on us in a way that it's just new. It's like you actually don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and working in that sort of uncertainty, you have to then be clear on what you can control and just keep putting attention on those things. So what we do know at this moment is Canada has a chance to qualify on the field, which is great. You know, that there's not some kind of mathematical equation that's going to decide, you know, whether you're going in a World Cup qualification pathway. It's very clear. We have games in front of us, potentially 20 matches, and what a football story that could be. You know, you think about qualifying for Qatar and the journey that can be for the Canadian fan to be right on these first 4 matches of this 20 match campaign. We've got 4 matches coming up. When they'll take place, we don't even know. I mean, that's in the hands of the gods, really. But we do know that, you know, those matches will come. We'll play them, and it's going to be one match at a time to really put the focus and attention on taking every single game serious, and putting the reality of our dreams are on the line every time we play. So, you know, COVID and the pandemic is a reality for every nation in CONCACAF. It's a reality for every nation around the world. And for us, we just have to control what we can control and ensure that when the first game comes, we're ready, and we're there with the best Canadian team that we can put on the field to take that first match in our stride and then move on to the next one and then the next one, and build that momentum that takes us to, as I say, probably one of the most amazing football stories in our history.
You mentioned COVID-19, the global pandemic, and that's sort of overriding everything when it comes to World Cup qualifying. The safety of all stakeholders, the players, the staff, the officials, the fans, is paramount, and it always should be. How does the fluidity of this situation play into the planning process? And what are some of the realities that you're having to deal with as this shifting situation changes from day to day, week to week?
Well, I think the first thing, you do have to exercise that level of patience. You know, there is so much that is out of the national body and as a head coach, your control. We're relying on powers way above us that will dictate, you know, whether we can play a home match in Canada. You know, the travel restrictions into some of these potential opponents are changing daily. So there is huge complexity in this process. And for us, what we're trying to position ourselves is, well, we know what our realities are. That there's a reality that it's been a year since our team have played. It's been a year since we've been together. And coming into a first match, which is scheduled for a Thursday, players arrive on a Monday. That's 2 training sessions to get a team ready for a potential opponent who has beaten Panama in the last year and a half, you know, narrowly beaten by Mexico, away to Mexico. So we have to, in our minds, look at this one match and say, how do we put ourselves in the best position to win this game? And then 2 days later, the next game in that window, which is what it will be, a 2-day turnaround with some kind of travel. So that's what we've been exploring, Jason, like really getting into the details of, how much it's going to cost to potentially get European players into that environment. How much is it going to cost to make the environment safe and create some kind of bubble? And we are just getting ourselves ready for when the green light goes on, but that green light may not go on for, till 2021. Who knows? Like we just have no certainty in that case. But as I say, the staff and some of the communication with the players is to get their minds ready for what is coming, and to help them understand the challenge of the opponent, which, as we know, CONCACAF opponents are tough. They're never easy, particularly the away matches, and to make sure we've created a very safe environment for our people.
With so many uncertainties and unknowns due to the pandemic and the revised qualification schedule, what does our success story look like? What is that story?
I think the success story is it is a 20-game campaign, and for every fan there, there's a to get on board right at the beginning and be part of the journey with us. A success story is making sure that our best players are given the chance to represent Canada. Those guys that have earned the right to wear that red shirt, we've done everything in our power to give Alfonso the opportunity to play for his country, which he wants to do. He loves to represent. He's part of this journey to change football in Canada by qualifying for a World Cup. And, people like Jonathan Azario, Mark Anthony Kerr, there's a whole raft of players that are really bought in to being part of this battle. They've been doing it for 2 years, and to give them the chance to come together and be really the narrators of this story, as opposed to bit parts that fly in at different points. I think it's critical that our best players are on the field, and making sure that every game is a must-win match, and the players know that, and that we take the results that we need, and we're not caught out by goal difference or slipping up in a CONCACAF nation like we've seen in the past. Being strong, Jason, being at our strongest is one of the most important aspects of I think this storyline.
Well, along with the rest of the country, I can't wait for that story to unfold. We'll know more on Wednesday, August 19th, when the draw for CONCACAF's World Cup qualifying first and final round is made in Zurich. John, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us, and all the best moving forward.
Thanks again, Jason, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.